sometime today.
I'm going to pull the whole thing down. I'm going to bring the whole fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's going to be biblical.
Hello everyone, welcome to Patriots Across the Pond. This is our Monday Respect show, and today we're doing something a little bit different. We're having a little round table for our founder and creator, Mr. Mark Abrams, on his 72nd birthday or born day, however you want to say it. Sorry for the delay and coming on a little bit late. We're still waiting for a couple of guests, so hopefully Lewis and Derek will be jumping on, but just want to make a little announcement. Our good friend, Stephen the Maestro, our Netherlands podcasting chum and legendary co-host, have joined the queue. Had some bad news last week. His best friend Renee passed away, so Stephen has been organising the funeral and everything, and Renee was another real truth patriot and warrior, and Stephen did over 150 shows with him, so Stephen's not up for coming on today, but I think he may be in the chat, so I just wanted to say a few words with him. And he was a little bit upset because he did want to meet Derek and Lewis, but maybe that's something that will happen in the future. So I'd just like everyone in the chat especially to send prayers, healing and love to the Maestro, and there we go. So, guys, Patriot Underground, Mark, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Always glad. Excuse me. Always glad to be here.
Yeah. So we thought today, in honor of your birthday, we would just put a little panel together. I don't really know that we have a specific agenda, but maybe just get, everyone's thoughts on where we are, where we're going. We've now passed July 4th, right? That was sort of a marker that everybody was wondering, speculating, waiting for. And now here we are, approaching August, and we'll just make a real organic conversation. Hopefully, Derek and Lewis will join us as we're talking. So how are you doing, Patriot?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. And of course, happy birthday to my dear friend, Mark. We just did a show not too long ago and got some really great feedback on it. A little bit of criticism too, but that's okay. That means you're actually, I think, stirring up the pot a little bit in a good way. So it's great to be here. And certainly I hope that Lewis and Derek can make it. It's been a long time since I've talked to Derek Johnson. I interviewed him once, I believe, probably like 3 years ago at this point. But I have a lot of respect for him, and certainly Maestro, if you're out there and you're listening, my condolences to you. I actually just found out about your dear friend Renee today. Ellis Stir sent me a message informing me about that. So I just wanted to wish you my condolences. But certainly I remember the last time we got together, I believe it was the four of us on the final episode of Respect. And here we are again. I really enjoyed talking about Stu and Elisa. So should be a great show today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I believe on that show as well, we talked for 15, 20 minutes behind the scenes, came online and said it all over again, didn't we? So we might have to do that today a little bit.
Yeah,
all the best stuff is on the cutting room floor.
Here comes Derek's just arrived.
There he
Hello,
is.
sir. How are you, Derek?
No, I'm exhausted.
Oh,
But
no.
Did you have one of those all-nighters?
it's just early in the South. That's what, for me, it is. I don't get up early anymore.
Oh, it was good to see you. That's perfect time. We're just introducing people. So, Mark, do you want to say a few little words? How have you been? And we just move on to Derek.
Well, you know, as we were talking about before we went on, we're in one of those situations where you've got people talking. And like I said, all they can do is speculate. That's all the people are doing. And, you know, using the terms with red pilling, black pilling, green pilling, orange, you know, it's so stupid after a point, because it is nothing but speculation. Why a lot of people haven't gotten into the mode of, we know the destination, sit back and enjoy the journey, I don't understand. There are things that get put out there, and there are things that are allegedly fact and this and that and the other. Fact is, we don't know. You know, the only thing that gets put out there that we know for a fact is stuff that Derek puts out there. It's right there in black and white. It's kind of undeniable. But above and beyond that, it's speculation. And speculation is what my business did for a decade. So why do you want to sit and listen to the speculation?
Yeah.
Sit, listen, discern. You know, Patriot and I had this discussion just last week, and it doesn't, it doesn't help the situation. People getting triggered, people getting aggravated, people getting annoyed and impatient, and that's to be expected. It's a war. It's gone on far too long, but, you know, it'll be over when it's over.
Right.
Yeah. Derek, so how are you?
Well, I can't. All of a sudden, I lost my hearing. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you, but you can't hear us now.
No. I had you loud and clear, and now all of a sudden, it's just.
I think with technology, maybe just try going out and coming straight back in.
Yeah, I'll try that, because that's wild what happened. Not sure what happened. I had you loud and clear.
You know, we always experience this. I don't know if Patriot or Mark or even Derek, whenever we have more than like 3 or 4 people, it's like musical screens. This one can't hear.
I mean, I
they
can
get
hear
out,
you,
they
but
come-
you sound like you're like 5 miles down a tunnel.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
just maybe go out and come back in. What I have found. Are you on the phone today, Derek?
I'll just come back in. I'll just see what happens. But if not, then I'll take these out and try to go without Bluetooth. But
Okay, yeah, that's perfect. All right, I think there was a lot of crackling about there when he was playing with his earphones anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that show we did the other day, Lisa, I think people that are on their computers were much better than people that are on their phones. The people that are on their phones were having a lot of problems dipping in and out.
Especially
We literally did a show. It was like someone was out, someone was in, someone came out. Like it was just, hopefully it was entertaining for people watching.
Yeah, exactly that. Derek, can you hear us okay?
yeah, I hear you fine now. I had it earlier the same way I did.
That's perfect. All right, don't touch your ears. Yeah, okay. So, Derek, how have you been lately? What have you been concentrating on? Obviously, still putting your videos out with all the military orders and stuff, so putting out some great information.
Well, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing militarily anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but it's been a blessing to get an opportunity to serve again in a different kind of capacity. But President Trump told everybody, he told all his veterans, he said, "Hey, you're gonna get to serve again." And I got told that probably, oh man, I'm trying to remember when that was, but I got told by a general that I was going to serve again. I was like, but naturally, I had just gotten out of the military, and they were like, "Man, I thought that was something." I thought they were just making a joke, meaning like, "Oh, you know, you guys get to get back in your communities and things like that." But I mean, this was a long time ago. But he said it in a way that I knew he wasn't just talking about that either. But at the same time, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that ain't gonna happen." But boy, did it ever! So, and then I got contacted, 7 years ago. Like, and they were like, "Hey, would you come back if we had to call you back?" And it wasn't just me; it was a bunch of other guys that got the call too. And so then we were like, "Well, that's a stupid question. Of course we would, you know." Like, we were always like, "Yeah, let's go." So, and then President Trump revolutionized my particular MOS in the military. What I did is exactly what the Golden Dome is. So, you know, it was one of those where he has absolutely reshaped the whole military, absolutely reshaped it. So, you know, now a lot of guys like me that had any kind of classification, you don't talk about some things till they absolutely declassify things. But President Trump, what he's doing is outside of just President Trump, but what the military is doing is incredible. So it was awesome to get that call and get to do it again. But other than that, you know, it's just everyday stuff for us. It's not like, you know, I know people think, "Oh my God," but I'm like, I mean, we've always had this capability. It's just that, you know, we were overran by global elitists, and they absolutely established what I call a managed democracy. It was a democracy. It's not what we are and who we are, but that's what they established. So, you know, it's just a matter of just taking that over. And, you know, I hear people out there still patriots, calling themselves patriots. Well, what happens if Trump loses? And, you know, I'm like, first off, do you realize that what you're saying is already, if he loses, it would be a 4th term he loses. Do you hear what you're saying? Like, and I'm like, you got to hear what you're saying first. So, like, when President Trump, that's what's so funny about this whole thing. I know I'm talking a lot here, but like, people, the whole world the other evening jumped straight to, "What? He can't do that. What's he talking about?" But they never even realized, wait, he said a 4th term. They never even realized that they didn't say, "Wait, he can't serve 3 terms. They went straight to, "He can't serve 4 terms. They've already accepted the 3rd term and don't even realize they've accepted it. That's what's genius about it. So see, they're already thinking, "Oh, what happens if a Democrat gets in there and they revoke everything?" I'm like, listen to what you're saying. That's not possible, right? So anyway,
yeah. I mean, that's
everyday work.
That speech Trump made the other day was just so full of information, and he was putting the crosshairs on everyone. I mean, even forgotten her name now. Is it Kirsten? Is it, you know, talking about her and the Bud commercials and stuff, and everything he said was another. And we don't want to hear comms all the time, but he was putting information out for everyone to go, wow, wow, wow. So we can all really say that things are starting to escalate and escalate and escalate now. I think we've been waiting a long, long time for this, haven't we? And
but that's a big part of it. You know, people have been watching and waiting and listening, and then speculating on everything. And like Patriot and I discussed just last week, where people are waiting to see results. People want to see something tangible, something they can sink their teeth into, because it's the only basis of reality that you've got. And when you're dealing in a psychological operation, you don't know what to believe, who to believe, or why to believe it. So everything is back and forth and back and forth. And we're living we're living in bizarro world. So I can only repeat what I said before. You go and, we know what the destination is. You got to make up your mind. You're going to sit back and enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Well, exactly that. And just obviously with Derek and stuff, with your information and the work you're doing and the military comms and stuff, that it's so much easier for you to see, and the rest of us is digging into it and listening to you and things, that it's even harder to use your discernment now when so much stuff is blatant AI and we can hardly tell the difference ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you what that does, though. There's a cool thing about it. And this is for everybody, obviously. But like when you talk about psychological operations, right? President John F. Kennedy wanted every single branch, but also every military member, not just if it was our MOS or not. He wanted every single soldier to be at the level of thinking like special operations. Meaning he wanted every soldier to be that elite with their thinking, not even if they just did it in like an actual MOS. See, a lot of people out there in the Patriot world, they'll hear military, they'll hear armed forces, and they just hear that like as this massive general word versus veterans. I met a guy the other evening. He was a young guy. He's in the National Guard. I go, okay, what's your MOS? He goes, 31 Bravo. Well, there's some MOSs in the military that just everybody knows. There's some they have to go, what the heck is that? But it's like a military police, right? So nailed it. We go into all these intricate talks, but see, a lot of people don't hear all the talk, and they're not going to know that language right off the bat. But when you hear psychological operation, the general Patriot world even thinks that the whole military uses psyops. It's like, no, it's not the whole military. It's the special operations portions of the military that uses that. In order to use that, as President Trump has used that, so then you got to know how federal mixes with military, and that's what we talk about, the PEDs, the Presidential Emergency Action Documents, which 99% of the world had never heard of that until I came onto the scene. Because it's a specialty thing. It's not a known thing. And you're not supposed to feel dumb about something like that. Or, oh gosh, what? And you're not supposed to feel scared though either. See, that's the other thing. People hear PSYOP. A lot of the general public, not patriots, a lot of patriots, but the general public, they hear PSYOP, they're automatically scared. Right? Or they think it's super secretive, but scary secretive. And it's like, no. It can be, sure, it depends on who's running it, but this time around, that's why I stress daily, it's like, if you knew what was going on, you'd be so pumped up and excited that you'd be wanting to follow it daily, to sink your teeth into it, what we're doing and how we're doing it, and we're doing it lawfully, right? So people would generically hear that. But what's cool about AI or something like AI, let's just say you hate it. Let's run with that. Let's say you absolutely hate that, you're scared of it, and all these other things. What AI can do, and I'm just showing you a reverse psychology type strategy. What it could do to people out there is that people get so tired of having complete access like that it can actually bring about true, and I use that word very, not loosely, but people got to hear the terms. It could mean true reform back to the public. Because when you have so much access to everything and everything's so open, right, and people don't know what to believe, well, when so many people get exhausted and tired but still thinking, then that's when people can come together and have true talks, right? It's kind of like when guys... maybe females don't understand this, but maybe we can help you understand some males sometimes. When we get exhausted and we just don't feel like we can fight anymore, then we end up probably drinking a beer together. Right? You go from fighting 1 minute to like, hey, I'm too tired to fight. You want to talk this out? And that happens a lot, right? So it's the same kind of, it's a reverse psychology of where society gets they think they're fatigued, They think they're exhausted, and they really are with the concept that, hey, we don't like this. Well, that's when you can bring about real, true reform and real, true conversations. And then you can home in on something that, well, we don't want this and we don't want that. And this is what's going to allow all these laws in every state and federal to be voided out that were never supposed to be a law in the first place. That's what's going to allow that. And then, like President Trump and the elected officials, they can take in one stroke of the pen 100, 200, 300, 400 laws abolished just like that. And that's what they were doing with the birthright citizenship. The Supreme Court ruled correctly as far as what their job is. Their job is to interpret the law as it sits on paper, not amend the law and not abolish the law. That's the legislative branch. So if people would just understand that simple concept, it's the same thing of what they're showing you, what your power is, especially if you're American, what your power is, what your role, what your duty, responsibility is. Your role, duty, responsibility is to know the law and say, we don't like this, we won't change. And that's what they're doing. It's the same thing, AI and anything else that could be established upon society is the same thing. It brings true reform to the table when you get exhausted. Because when you get exhausted, it can actually, if you're still a thinker and you're still in touch, your exhaustion can bring everybody to the table.
Yeah. You know what? I had a question for everyone, and obviously everyone brings a different perspective. Like Derek, we love that you're part of this discussion, but you have much more, knowledge and about a lot of things. So I would like to get everyone's opinion though of this. Like, do you think that part of the problem, I put that in quotes, with people, most people, even, some of the truther community, but mostly like the population at large, the main problem is that they just don't understand that this is a military operation, that's sort of, tell me I'd love to hear, like, just go around, maybe start with you, Mark, and go around just what everyone thinks, like how that could be one of the main problems, that people just don't get it.
Well, there isn't anything in this movement really that's not a double-edged sword. If people, kind of what a lot of us are waiting for is the actual public military takeover, because then we know we're in the end game. Okay, but facts being what they are, if you talk to people about this is a military operation, military control, blah, 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 immediately, they're overthrowing the government. It's a militia, it's a coup, it's all these things, and everybody goes into that panic. The matter of waking people up and getting people to speed and getting people to understand what we have allowed to happen. And that's 100%. We have allowed all of this crap to happen. Malice aforethought. We sat back, allowed them to take that control and to abuse that control. So the people need to wake up and understand exactly where we are, and the fact that it is a military operation and a military plan. And that's also something that I've railed about a lot. People talk about, Trump this, Trump that, Trump the other. This is not, I don't think you could have gotten anybody who could have done the job as a front man, as a figurehead, other than President Trump. You need somebody who's smart. You need somebody who's, who can think on his feet and is used to dealing with business, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a military operation. They didn't go to Trump and say, we'd really like to make things better. We'd really like to take things back to the way they were. Tell us what we should do. No, it's the other way around. They're the Rolling Stones. He's Jagger. It's as simple as that. But to tell people that we're in a military operation it's probably the hardest part of it, because people are not, the normies, quote unquote, are not going to get it. And they're immediately going to get triggered to, it's a coup.
Yeah.
Which is the same reason they didn't just, the military didn't go in 2012 and take Jughead out, because it would have been a military coup. It would have been, we're overthrowing the government, et cetera, et cetera. So there would have been all kinds of panic and probably a civil war. We're beyond that. But I think more needs to be publicly exposed in whatever manner it needs to be done. I'm not the expert on how it should be done. I have my own opinions on it, but there are things that need to be publicly exposed to, I think, give the Patriots, like I said before, something tangible to grasp hold of and say, okay, we're moving in the right direction, and give the normies a chance to think a little bit instead of react. Because that's the biggest problem with the normies, Gov. But that's the problem with the normies, is the fact that they tend to react rather than listen and discuss. So we got a ways to go with that.
Yeah, exactly. Hi, Lewis. How you doing?
Hello there.
Howdy, Gov.
I hear there may be a birthday going on. I don't know. Did I hear that correctly?
Somebody's old.
Is that guy in the top middle there? Elisa just asked a question. Do you just want to answer it again, Elisa, and then we'll carry on around?
Yeah, sure. Nice to see you, Lewis. Thanks for joining. Sorry, there's a little communication confusion, but as usual, Christine came through and got you on here. Thank you. So what I was saying is that, of course, Derek comes from a very different perspective than us, right? We're not in the military. We're not seeing and privy to what he knows and understands. So we're answering it a little differently than he might. But do you think part of the problem, the issue with people kind of waking up, getting it, stepping into more of their power is because they don't understand that what's really going on is a military operation? Do you think that's kind of at the root of a lot of the issues, that they don't understand what they're seeing, or they're buying into a lot of the nonsense?
Okay, so I heard the word normies before. Is that who you're referring to?
Yeah, like the general population. I mean, there's levels to normies, right? There's some that are see more than others, and some that are just like they're so asleep. But
Okay,
in general.
okay. Well, the general population, they're going to be so far away from whether there's a military operation going on or not. They're not going to have a clue in regards to that. So part of the awakening, I believe, is for the information to roll out appropriately. And what I mean by that is, I can tell you 6 years ago, when I was really started doing documentaries, so on and so forth, there was a slew of people that were just truth barfing on everybody. So they were throwing out too much information. Now, what happened, the reason why I made my first film is I found that we as patriots that may have some information, some more than others, were always talking to our echo chamber. And the reason why I made the first film, 2020 Vision, is to do exactly the opposite. So the way the film started is I acclimated people to the information. And what I mean by that is, first I said, okay, here were some conspiracies that were the Gulf of Tonkin, the Tuskegee experiment, and so on and so forth. All of those were called crazy, wacko conspiracy theories back in the day, but they're all common knowledge now to the public of being truths. Is it possible now, and now remember, I'm talking to the normies, is it possible now that there are a lot of things going on that are called conspiracy that are actually facts based on our knowledge of how these things roll out? And then I did a paradigm shift, and then I go into it, because I think where we made a mistake is, instead of speaking to people where they are, I think we speak to them where they want to be, where we want them to be. Yeah. Right. And I think it's a huge mistake. So if you look at the operation itself, everything has been a very slow rollout of information. And I think because what they're doing is they're priming the pump to get people to understand this. Right now, some people with more information, or some people that may have dug into the laws and orders, and some people that may have dug into Q, whatever it is, will be accelerated on that. But I think for the normies, as that's who you're talking about, I think this great awakening is intentionally an acclimation, just like they got us here, right? We were the frog in the pot. That's how we got to where we are. They didn't just suddenly, just their full satanic agenda was on hyperspeed. No, they rolled us into it over several hundred years, and that's how we got here today where we are. So I believe that's the way it's going. There's a lot of frustration within the Patriot movement. Everybody has the right answer according to them. One thing that universally is true. Let's assume everything that these great patriots are talking about is absolutely on point. Or let's say there's just two of them that are on point. The one thing that I think is missing universally is we the people being part of the plan. And that is my biggest frustration. And this is why I've worked so hard. It doesn't matter if the military is doing their job. It doesn't matter if there's a Q operation. I'm not saying there's not on either. In fact, I know there is. It does not matter unless we, the people, are part of the solution. And the reason why I say that is because if somebody comes in on their white horse and saves us today, we're going to be right back where we were in a couple of years because we didn't take accountability and ownership of this. This is one of the reasons why I think the process is so slow, because the people that are really behind are your average everyday people, and they need to be part of the solution and work with, say, the Trump administration or work with others to move us forward. That's about as succinct as I could put it.
Exactly. Let me just add to that before we go around the fact that it is, it's not just the normies out there. It's many people of good friends of mine that are truthers, and they are doing everything they can that haven't been down the route of the Q drops, that sort of middle ground. It's those people that don't know it's a military operation. So when I try and tell them things about what I can see going on around me, for certain politicians that we think are working for Trump being installed to play a certain role and stuff, they're not really getting that yet. And whether you believe Trump was asked to run by the generals, or whether you believe Trump and JFK Jr. were part of this a long, long time ago, Trump has been breath of this role the whole of his life, it all comes down to the same operation of military civilian alliance. Trump saying, we are giving power back to you, the people, and the power rising up to take it. Now, I don't even know
whether 2017. That's exactly what he said. But we didn't take the ball, Stu. This is what I've been saying for 6 years. Yeah. We, the people, have not been part of the solution. In fact, if anything, we've been part of the problem. And that's why I'm creating the Freedom in Action platform. This is why I'm trying to give tools to people, because we have to work symbiotically with them. I believe there is no way that we're going to take back our country without military. There's just not going to happen at this point. It's just too far gone. The reality is, years ago, before the internet and before our surveillance state, we could have created militias and done it the way the founding fathers wanted it. The reality, though, is under the surveillance state, there's no way we're going to do this without the military doing their job. Yeah. So what can we do is we need to do as much as we possibly can to wake people up and to bring them into the now. So I know there's a lot of people very upset with President Trump. I know there's a lot of black pilling out there. I would pose to people, what if he's testing us right now? What if it seems like there's a Zionist agenda, so we can stand up and say, President Trump, I get it. I voted for you, but I'm against this. I'm against the surveillance state. I'm against this. So our voices are heard. I believe, and I said this for a long time, if President Trump is the man who I think he is, he wants to be challenged, because we can't just trade one idol for another idol.
Yeah.
Right? We can trust, but at the same time, we need to own our sovereignty and speak up. If we see something that doesn't make sense, this Israel alliance doesn't make sense to the normies, right? So let's mention it. Even if we're wrong, us saying, hey, I don't like this. It seems like a Zionist agenda or whatever it is, right? I actually believe this is what the plan and President Trump would want. They're like, okay, they're stepping into their own sovereignty here. They're starting to ask questions, even if somebody that we're supposed to trust. I believe that the administration actually wants that. And that's a hard sell for me. Trust me, I've been telling people this for a long time.
Yeah, and I'd like to just step in too, because you said about being tested. You know, President Trump went on telling everyone to go and look at everything that's been disclosed. I can't imagine that they're not looking at that and saying, how many of these people, how many visits are we getting to this site? And they use these things to try to determine how many people are, you know, got a lot of people complaining, gas prices, this, that, illness. But when given the opportunity to do their own research and dig into something, you know, it's kind of like the whole Convid scam, you know, how many people really rose to the occasion on that. And I think that's a perfect example. That site should have really collapsed because there were so many people going to it. But it would be very interesting to see how many people, particularly Americans, but worldwide, actually went to that site. And it's still like trying to light the fire under people.
Exactly. Well, and I do believe part of the main goal of this military operation is to get the people so pissed off that they rise and they've had enough. Because when the people rise all together.
Interesting you say this, and Derek can probably tag onto this better than me, is I believe, Elisa, that disclosure site is a military operation. And here's why, is I believe that there's going to be whether it's the War Powers Act or whatever it is, I believe there's going to be a declaration where the feds temporarily take over the elections, right? I'm deeper into this. I'm in full investigation mode right now into the LA County elections. I know more about this than most people on the planet. And I absolutely believe that most of it is internal. It's not external, as in China, Serbia, Italy, so on and so forth. But I believe the reason why I believe this is a military operation going on that, what that is on the disclosures, is that will be used as the onus, right, to declare the elections now controlled by the military in November, because this was foreign interference into our elections, right? I think there was foreign influence and interference, yes, but this is a deep state CIA operation, what's going on in the elections. I know it. I've been hammered. They're coming after me. I can tell you that firsthand. But I think it's brilliant because I believe what they're going to use, and that's what that disclosure is about. They're going to use the foreign interference in our elections as an onus for the military to take over the election. And I could be 100% wrong. This is just me reading the tea leaves of what's going on there.
Yeah.
And I'm open to being wrong. I don't care about being right. I just want to take my fucking country back.
Well, I guess I'll jump in for a moment here. I like the question that you posed, Elisa, about is what's holding things up, for lack of a better phrase. Is it because the normies, quote unquote, don't know that there's a military operation? I don't think they're supposed to know that there's a military operation. It's been said many times that Q is not for everybody. I mean, Q is for a certain, the people on this screen, obviously the people that are watching this show, but we're a very, very small subsection of the population. That the white hats knew there was going to be that contingent who actually, would dig deeper and would be able to read the comms and be able to figure out. And of course, Derek has done a brilliant job in pointing out so much of that in black and white. So we actually have something tangible to look at with all of the laws and orders. And, but I can kind of tie together in a sense what Derek said, what Mark had to say, and what Lewis also added, which is, the general population, they're supposed to be interpreting everything that's happening right now as organic, because otherwise it wouldn't really be a psychological operation if they knew it was a psychological operation. That's what puts us in a unique position. We can see both sides. We know that it's a psyop, but we also know that, at least in part, we're not the, as Derek often says, the target audience of that specific psyop. If they knew, it would almost be like taking down the fourth wall, and the psyops would no longer be effective. So I think at that level, there's a lot of truth to that, of us not being the target audience. However, I would also say that when you go to see a movie, just to use that metaphor, right, who is the target audience? Well, it's the people that are actually watching and paying attention. And so the awakened patriots inside of this community, we would certainly qualify under that definition as being part of the target audience, but with a very different objective. Like, we're supposed to recognize that it's a military operation. They're not. But then it raises the question, and I think Lewis and Mark and even Derek touched upon this as well. What's the point of having all of us be subjected to these continuous psyops? And that's where you see quite a bit of a divergence within the Patriot community. A lot of folks have gravitated in the direction, as I did for quite a long time. Somebody mentioned the term, I think it was Mark, being in an echo chamber, essentially saying that everything that we're watching is all part of a scripted movie. Nothing is actually real. And this is all being done simply to awaken the normies gradually in a painfully slow process, but it's all being done to awaken the normies. And then there's sort of the more balanced perspective of, well, there's still an ongoing war against the deep state. The war is not actually over yet. And to me, that seems to be that rings a lot more true, given everything that we're seeing domestically, geopolitically, financially. There still seem to be a lot of moves that the White Hats are making in real time that are organic. Now, that can coexist with the idea of a psyop. I mean, one of the things that Q said famously was, we are the gatekeepers of all, and by all we mean all information. And also said that the war is fake, but the news is fake, but the war is real. So in a sense, we can interpret that as, well, there are organic, real-time kinetic operations that are happening, but at the same time, the White Hats, for POG, the Ghosts in the Machine, call them whatever you want, they're controlling the narrative, and they're spinning that narrative and dispensing it to the public in the form of a psyop to gradually wake people up. But as far as the Anons out there, if we are indeed, if my theory is correct, and I think Lewis would agree with me and Mark to an extent, that we are also part of the target audience of the movie, the question then becomes, well, what's the objective for the Anons? We've already stated, and it's pretty clear what the objective is for all the normies, but what about for all of us? And one of the things that Derek said that I found very interesting was that, the purpose of psychological operations, and I'm certainly not a military expert, as everybody knows, but from a layman's perspective, fifth generation warfare, psychological operations, and you and I, Lewis, talked about this recently, are designed ultimately to gradually break people down, to demoralize, to placate them, for a certain period, but ultimately to break down the sort of the psychological narrative that they've been holding on to. And I believe that's a big part of what we're seeing right now, with all of the questionable optics coming out of the Trump administration on one level, but then on another level, they keep telling us, trust the plan, trust Trump. They keep putting out all of these memes. We're seeing, Trump raining down the comms on us, telling us not to be panicans. So it's kind of like a mixed message. They're doing a lot of things that on the surface, we certainly didn't vote for and didn't want. But on the other hand, they're saying, trust the plan, and, believe that the Patriots are in control, et cetera. And I think for us, what this is designed to do is exactly what you instructed us to do, that I've said many times. I didn't need that instruction because it's hardwired into my brain, and I believe all of us are in the same category, is to question everything. Mm-hmm. And there was, I believe that the hallmark of an American patriot, or any patriot for that matter, is to always question people in power. It doesn't mean that you inherently believe that they're evil. You can trust them, you can support them, and so forth. But if a series of events starts to roll out that appears to be very contradictory to where you thought we were headed, to me, it would seem intuitive that they were trying to urge us and prompt us to do exactly that, which is to question the nature of the plan, and even for us to question Trump himself. And there are a lot of people who find that very unpalatable, immediately jump to the idea of, well, you're blackpilling and so on and so forth. And we talked about this a little bit behind the scenes, and I know Lewis and I tend to agree on this, that blackpilling is a term that in a lot of ways has become, in my view, overused, almost to the
extent. Racist, you're anti-Semite.
That's exactly what I said backstage before it's like at a certain point, it just sort of rolls off your shoulders. It doesn't have the sting anymore because it gets so overused. Making the assertion that there is no plan, making the assertion that, Trump is a bad guy and Q is a deep state psyop and all that. Yes, that is by definition blackpilling. Okay, that I would agree with 100%. And there are people out there who do that. However, looking at a lot of the things that we're being subjected to and the existential threats that they represent, I believe it's inherent. I mean, it's inherent upon all patriots to question those things and to say, well, wait a second, where's that headed? Doesn't mean I'm making a negative assertion about it. But when I see the infrastructure being rolled out for a surveillance state, and Louis, you mentioned that just a moment ago, and amidst quite a laundry list of things I could mention right now, but I won't, that are questionable, I believe that it's our duty to do so. I mean, there was a time when all American patriots would have agreed with that statement, that it's incumbent upon all of us to always question our leaders and to never take anything with blind faith, right? And so that's kind of where I stand on that. And I believe that the void, somebody mentioned before, that we have to be in a position where we are actually ready to step up and fill the void of responsibility that's going to be left when the mass arrests come, when the justice phase comes, et cetera. So I think that's a part of what we're going through right now. And as far as, I'll wrap up with this, Elisa, to really answer your question, I don't believe it's the lack of understanding on the part of the normies that we're in a military operation that's slowing the process, so to speak. But I would connect it with what Mark had to say, which is ultimately that people need to see before the normies are really going to wake up. I mean, I think we could go through another decade of the status quo before all the normies wake up en masse. What they really need to see is something tangible in terms of actual high-profile people being brought to justice, number one, and number two, to actually have the mainstream media, because let's face it, there's still in the mind of these sheep-like people, they're still the arbiter of reality, and they're not going to really believe anything unless it's actually broadcast on the mainstream media. And I've talked about that going back for 5 years. So I think, and then there's also the question about, once it hits people's pocketbooks and their finances and so forth, that'll wake a lot of folks up too. But short of that, I don't believe that the status quo is really moving the needle all that dramatically in terms of awakening the public en masse.
See, to me, when I look at this, and this is just in my perspective, we as patriots feel we know certain things. We don't. In reality, we don't. The normies, we feel, don't know anything. We don't know that either. We've been told from the get-go, the children will unite the world. The problem happens to be, and that's the crux of the problem right there, we are an ununited world. We're an ununited states, okay? And there has to be something. There has to be that magical event, whatever it happens to be, that drives everybody, not just here in the United States, but globally, to look in retrospect and look into themselves and put away all the adjectives, et cetera, and all the BS that we've been told with the racism and the anti-Semitism and everything else, that this country is no good and that country is no good and these people are no good, to get past that and work as one. That's the one thing that's got to come, and that's the one thing that's got to happen. And that's the one thing that so far I don't see. Again, I don't know what the plan is. I don't know where they're going to go, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the one thing that's been avoided so far. What is going to unite the people and say, enough of this crap? We're not going to, what was it? The movie Network? I'm mad as hell and not going to take it. This is what's got to happen. This is really what's got to happen. And people have got to wake up to that fact and start to work together, because it's only working together that whenever this war ends and we get to where we're supposed to be, that it will have legs to stand on.
Yeah. Well, the more they stay awake, the more it's going to hit them like a steam train when it comes out. And we were told that it would be crimes against humanity, that crimes against children, sorry, that unites all humanity. So I think it's building and building. Derek?
All right, so I made my notes where I can stay a little bit concise and precise over here. All right, after all that. Well, first and foremost, you know, I tend to get, I speak in first person form, so sometimes people take that offensively, obviously. As you probably saw in New York, some people may have got offended, like on the stage. But the problem is, I think, with the military versus everybody else, is one, the target audience, as we call it, and Patriot world, a lot of the Patriot world believes what they want to believe still. All right. When you got patriots out there questioning a veteran, oh, how long did he serve? And oh, he didn't serve long enough, and all that bullshit. All right, let's just call it what it is. It's bullshit. All right. When you got patriots out there trying to find a DD-214, first off, they don't even know what a DD-214 is. It don't show your day-to-day operations in the military. That's how dumb the average patriot is. And I have to use that terminology because sometimes holding a flashlight for your dad, you got yelled at, right? I got yelled at from my dad just for moving the flashlight, all right? Did my dad think I was actually dumb? No, but he told me I was. What are you doing? Put the flashlight here. I'm like, I'm a kid. Why do I got to hold a flashlight? I don't want to hold a flashlight. I want to be on my four-wheeler. Well, guess what? He was whom? Dad, you're holding this flashlight. So I still got called dumb and all kinds of other things for moving the flashlight around. All right, so many people out there don't know your role, as that saying is. So the target audience by design is supposed to see a lot of this that way. Then it goes back to bridging that gap. How do you bridge that gap? A lot of people think us veterans are just sitting over here on a podcast just to be a veteran and on a podcast. It's not true. When President Trump told us to remember our oath, we're going to serve again, we're serving again. All right. There's one thing that will happen, ladies and gentlemen, and this is not a slander towards the civilian public because you didn't do something, but if we had a mandatory callback, y'all ain't going. We are. All right. Now, they won't go straight to retirees. They're going to go down the line of what they'll go down. Lewis has some children who aren't in the military anymore, but they're not retired. They'll be the first call back. All right. It'll go in a line like that. All right. So when you look at bridging the gap, what's going to make people wake up? Well, people in the general population, not the patriot world necessarily, but the general public, they don't know a single term from a single sentence, from a single paragraph of one single law, much less all of them. So the American public got dummied down, but the American public also has to take responsibility as well. You can't just sit and always have a blame game of, oh, well, when was it? How was it? How long has it been? We're in the now right now. You either want to be a doer or you're a donor. If you're a donor, then step aside. It's that old saying, lead, follow, or get the heck out of the way. Just move over. All right. So there's a part of that. Also, let me find where I was at. So the Patriots believe in what they want to believe. And then also bridging the gap. But in basic training, a lot of people in the civil world say, oh, well, I wouldn't join the military because they yell, scream, cuss. They yell, scream, and cuss to create chaos. And it's pure chaos. But once you learn that's part of it, right? You can operate in chaos. That's what they teach us. And that's why they're yelling and screaming and kicking and cussing. And it just seems like that. But once they get you to focus on what your job is, then everything can break free in the world and just be complete, pure chaos. But if you're skilled for it and you're positioned for it and you're ready for it, you can stay steady and calm in the midst of any kind of, whatever it is, trouble, chaos, whatever. Right? So that's what breaking someone down does. They're not necessarily breaking down the people to build them back up as zombies. And you know, you've heard people out there, even the low-level fruits of the Democrats saying that, oh, they're breaking people down and they're gonna control everybody this way. Well, no, every individual has to realize you have the power to be controlled or not. It's what you allow to happen to yourself or not. So many people don't think like that. So what people like me are doing, they put people like me in my place because it's a heavy cyber warfare right now. Heavy cyber warfare. And a lot of it's still more technical based than it is so much just psychological based. But at the same time, how is it that so many patriots don't have the respect to the military? A lot of patriots do not respect the military from the standpoint of the thinkers and what we're supposed to be doing to help people bridge this gap. People like me are here to help bridge that gap of what's a real psyop. Is this a psyop? Or was that just an actual real operation taking place? Whatever, right? So a lot of patriots out there, and it's not that the veteran like myself or anybody like that wants the respect from the standpoint of, oh, look at me, respect me. People tend to mix that up, right? People, I hear it out there. I have to hear it because at events, some people are like, oh, he's cocky and he's this. No, we're here to snap you into reality. We're here to educate you on what you're supposed to know, not keep believing what you want to believe. And too many patriots are kind of like an Easter egg basket. They want to pull in what they want to pull in versus what is actually going on right now. Who is it? Who's in control? What are they doing? What's the next step? What do you think the next step might be? Too many patriots are still trying to pull in their Easter basket, what they want to believe. And that's just not the case. Then you got what I call the hindsight 2020. President Trump, see, when you're going through something like we're going through right now, it's sometimes it's hard to see it because you're living in the moment and you're trying to figure that out. We get 20, 30, 40 years down the road when Lewis is a tombstone. I got to make an old joke here. But when we get 30, 40, 50 years down the road and we all look back, the ones that are alive, that hindsight's going to be 2020, right? And it's going to be perfect because you're only going to have the key things that made up the past and what made that revolution that revolution. You can't remember every colonel, every general from the Civil War. You're not supposed to. You can't remember every colonel and every general from the Revolutionary War. You're not supposed to. But you can read about them. You can go Google it and look it up and try to see, man, who's this guy? Never heard of him, but he was a general in the Revolutionary War. So some people got remembered, some people don't. Right now, what people are doing is living in that moment, which you're supposed to. But there is an operation going on around you, but it's by design not to know every aspect of that, except, hey, here's a fruit of that. Here's a fruit of that today. Here's a fruit of that today. Just like people already accepting or not accepting the fourth term, they don't even realize they accepted the third term. They didn't even hear that. They didn't even thought that. Wait, what? He's running for a fourth term? How can he do that? Is that constitutional? If it's constitutional to run for a third, fourth, it's constitutional to run for a third. They didn't even realize they just accepted the third term. So see, a lot of President Trump stuff is what he said, revenge. Our success will be our revenge. Our retribution will be our success, right? And so a lot of this, it's kind of like children. You've heard me say the metaphor. A lot of you already have kids. You've had kids. Now, we're not here to debate, do you really love them or not? If they're in your will or not, we're not here to debate that. But if you really love your children, when you were raising your children, they may have gotten a knife in their hands at 3 years old. And they didn't realize that that shiny object could have actually hurt them. And when you take it away from them, they cry, right? They're like, oh, it was shiny. It was something that looked fun. But you knew it was danger to them. That's what President Trump and what the military operation is all these Americans out there just going, oh my gosh, FIFA World Cup. Oh, yeah, Spain. I'd rather watch wet paint dry than watch soccer, right? That's just me. But someone else out there, they're watching all these things. They know how many husbands the Kardashians have had. They know everything out there. Go up to them and say, hey, who won between Vietnam and the United States? Oh, I think the French did. You got a 50-50. That's your average general public. So there's a bridge of a gap, right? Then when you get to the patriot world, you got to be careful. And I'm not trying to offend anybody here. And also Lewis's point, I'm just going to bridge a gap on Lewis's point a little bit in a good way, is with the people out there that need to take responsibility, you can't also self-appoint yourself. And I think that's where Q was a good thing for people, but it's kind of like that, give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Well, you can't also self-appoint yourself as like this, QAnon or this Anon, right? You got to be careful with that. And a lot of people out there in that world has tried to take upon and bestow themselves and crown themselves some kind of something that they're not. And my grandpa always said an idle mind is a devil's workshop. And so when you start telling yourself that you're something you're not, and you start making yourself believe that, oh, I'm this person and I'm this person, it'd be like me trying to get too big for my britches and thinking I'm a general. When I'm around a general, when I'm around a colonel, I hold my bearing. I know my place. I don't talk. I let them talk, right? It's just knowing your place. So a lot of anons out there are self-appointed themselves, all right, versus what President Trump is trying to reinstill back into the fabric and the grain of America is merit-based. Some people are just smarter than others. Some people are just more knowledge than others. Some people just have more skills than others. And if we get back to that and recognizing that, but also, as Lewis says, you do have to have a responsibility there with questioning. Yes, you do. But it's how you question, right? It's how you question somebody. It's how you question their authority. When you're walking in, yelling, kicking, cussing, screaming, and you're demanding an answer, but yet you don't even know the terms of the topic, that's not how you ask a question. How you ask a question is knowing the topic, knowing the verbs, the adverbs, the nouns, the pronouns, not the way the liberals do it, but knowing every aspect of the verbiage and then going in and asking a public official, right? So there's a bridge that you have to gap. And too many Americans, they don't even know their own local state law versus federal. And so it's painful. Yes, if you're full away, it's painful. It is painful, no doubt. But if you hold the people off too much from what they can know versus throwing them crumbs, then they also could go, well, if you knew the whole time, why didn't you say anything? So what I do is I just go ahead and give them the full buffet and say, well, here's the buffet. This is what's going on. This is the laws, the orders, and votes right now. And then it's up to them to have that awareness to go, maybe there is something I don't know about what's going on, what's taking place right now lawfully. So you kind of have to be the bad guy sometimes and just be like, look, I know I'm a big bad wolf, but if you don't want to be called dumber than an ashtray on a kite, then don't act dumber than an ashtray on a kite. All right. Do I really think you're dumb deep down? No, but you're acting like it, right? If you're going to whine, kick, cuss, fuss, complain, groan, and try to argue a point or a topic, but you don't know a single term from a single sentence of a single paragraph of a single law of that topic, we got problems. And when I do know that and you don't know that, then how do we bridge that gap? Right? It goes back, do you want to know? A lot of Americans just don't want to know. So it's kind of like the children thing where we're doing the whole big, bad, dirty wolf, all this other stuff, operations, cleaning it out, and then it's a slow roll to the people, right? And what President Trump did the other night, it looked live to the average general public, right? But what they're doing now, as Mark, as a journalist and media, former, obviously, from that world, but now is where they can start using, not weaponizing, but using the mainstream media and what the perception is of the mainstream media now to the general public. Now they can start red pilling the public with the actual laws and the orders of what's been taking place, right? So that is the next step moving forward. Now they're going to start using, I've already said it many times, everybody else here, you know this too as well, yourself personally, you know this. It can't be President Trump and President Trump only and President Trump's face and President Trump's image that exonerates himself. It's got to be the other side, right? So when the other side starts praising him, and this is what Q talks about when they can't walk down the streets, well, when the mainstream media starts using their image, ABC, NBC, whomever, CNN, all those. When they start doing actual great articles, and 9 out of 10 of the articles are moving towards the trend of good versus what they look like in the past, then the people have no choice but to accept what they're receiving, right? And then you start slowly red pilling them in another way. It's not brainwashing them, and it's not controlling them. It may seem that way to some people, but you've got to get that back into their minds, because your idle mind, right? Your idle mind's the devil's workshop. So you got to start getting that back into them, showing them what the norm is and what it's supposed to look like. So versus us just having a hard stop everything, this is what's taking place. It's just an operation to what President Trump calls the weave. They're weaving it in. And when we get on the flip side where there is something public, Obama, whoever it may be, they'll be accepting of it, right? And then also what they'll be accepting of is, well, we had to do it this way because you were back here. And most people who are conscious, who are adults and honest, they'll go, I was asleep. I had no idea what's going on. And they'll be accepting of it. And, you know, it's like, there's a lot to this, but, you know, the deep state, I keep hearing people say the white hats are doing this and the deep state's doing that. If you're going to talk that way to the normal target audience, not the patriot world. The deep state ain't nowhere around. If you're going to make a case that the deep state are still around and operating, then you got to explain why 21 to 25, they didn't terminate a single executive order with a national emergency by President Trump. They didn't terminate a single tariff. The judges, Obama, Bush, Clinton appointed judges didn't try to block a single tariff for 4 years. You got to explain for the first 2 years how they had a Democrat president, Democrat House, Democrat Senate, and couldn't do a single thing. No, that I know I'm talking long-winded, but a lot of you are married. But women that are listening, a lot of you are married as well. If you're going to make a case that the deep state are still alive, let me show you what this is like. If I had a girlfriend, if I had a wife, and she came up to me and said, "Does this dress make me look fat?" I'd be like, well, you know, like guys, this is where you got to always be on your P's and Q's with your girlfriend. You got to always be walking around because they're like predators always. Woman can be skinny as a pissy stick, and she's gonna be like, "Does this make me look fat?" Don't hesitate too long either, guys. Remember, when you hesitate too long, you're already acknowledging she might have a little pudge somewhere she ain't supposed to have. So you got to always walk around with a woman going, "No, babe, babe, you look just like I married you. First time I ever saw you, you look just like that." You could be lying your rear end off, but that's a case where you lie your rear end off and you save your butt later, right? Well, they had a commercial not long ago. I can't remember who it was. And they did a scenario where Abraham Lincoln was asked by his wife, "Does this dress make me look fat?" And he went, and he hesitated because he's honest. Well, with his hesitation, she stormed out the room, right? So saying the deep state's still around would be like your wife saying, or girlfriend, fiance, whomever, "Does this dress make me look fat?" And you go like, "Babe, yes, you have to squeeze through a garage door. You so fat. You so fat you play pool with the planets." It'd be like you purposely digging your own hole to where you can't even see out the hole, and then you turn around and go, "I'm going to show her. Babe, I love you. You so beautiful, baby. I can't see anymore. I'm so deep in this hole, but I love you." That would be like the deep state saying, "Oh, we're going to continue all your executive orders, President Trump. We're going to continue all your national emergencies, President Trump. We're not going to terminate a tariff, President Trump. We're not going to do anything like that. And we're just going to hand it right back to you January the 20th, 2025. But guess what we're going to do? You Nazi, you king, these tariffs are a burden to the American people." That's what you're saying when you say the deep state is still operating. That makes no sense whatsoever. And I can keep going. That ain't all. But those are your biggies. So see, it's a operation for the people to slowly wake up. It's like they're groggy. You're coming out of a surgery, and all that stuff's coming out of your system, and you're like, "Where am I? Who am I? What happened?" kind of deal. So it's kind of like that. It's slow rolling it out, but it's an operation from that angle. Can the people know? Yeah, they can know. It's not secreted from that angle. It's only secreted because they don't know the knowledge. They don't know the terms. They don't know any of the definitions. So it's not secreted, though.
Yeah.
You see, you just took it where a lot of us have been railing about for quite a while already. which is the fact that when you're dealing with the general public, and even you're dealing with a lot of sheriffs. I've had this discussion with Sheriff Mack before, and a bunch of other people. You've got the general public that sits and watches the news, or if they watch alternative media, which has become no different than the mainstream media. And people don't think independently. They sit there and shake their heads and go, well, you know, Derek just said it, or, you know, Stu or Elisa just said it, or one of us just said it, and that's gospel. And it's not. And when you're dealing with people of authority, our lawmakers, people in government, people who are sheriffs, et cetera, or police officers, they take an oath to not only the United States Constitution, but also to their state constitution. And they have no clue as to what the hell they're taking an oath to. They've never read it. They don't know what they're talking about. They just know they've got a badge and a gun. They've got authority. So you've got a lot of learning that's got to be done, not just in the normal community, but in the Patriot community. And these are things that have to be addressed. These are things that people have to start to know and stop being sheeple.
Yeah.
And start to really do what we need to do.
Yeah.
Let me tag on.
Hey, I was going to say something real quick with Mark. Have you ever seen the movie, the South Park movie, where he goes to hell? And he went to hell because he didn't read the fine print. Have you ever seen that? Like, what am I in hell for? Right? And he's hanging upside down and he's in hell. And he didn't read the fine print when you're like filling out Google. You know, you just keep scrolling, accept. Well, in that, it's, you know, they're playing it to be like, yeah, you accepted it. The terms is to go to hell if you don't do certain things like that. So it's the same thing that I see with people out there. It's like, they don't know a single thing, but they accept it just because I have to. Right? Versus, and that goes back to Lewis's point of again, though, like that's that bridging that gap. It's like, you know, a civilian military operation, here's your platter for the day. Like it's bridging that, knowing what your role is and responsibility. And then also, how do you apply that in the civilian sector? But it's the same thing as a lot of this is like you're just talking about. Like it's like that's the first thing that came to my mind, and that's a good thing is this to show people that look, like the little fine print is fine print too. So in the movie Pure Country, he said that little white speck on top of chicken shit is chicken shit too, right? So it's kind of learning that, right?
Let me tag on to what Derek was saying about the deep state, because I think the confusion for a lot of people is what they're seeing on a daily, and many Patriots also. So the first thing that I believe happened, and I talked to my wife about this because my wife believes that there may still be baby parts in foods and so on and so forth. And I said, honey, the first thing President Trump would have done, and he did, if you look at all the corporations the heads of the corporations that fell and all the farms that got burned, the first thing he would have done is he would have gotten rid of the cannibalism within inside of our food. Now there may still be chemicals in there, so on and so forth, and then that's why you see him pushing the McDonald's and the Burger Kings and so on and so forth. So I believe that we went straight after the deep state and probably took down the heads of the 13 families. The reason why it would not appear that way, I'm going to like it to what Rudy Giuliani did using the RICO Act to take down the Italian mob.
Yes.
So what they did is he didn't invent the RICO Act, but he's the first one to reinterpret it and use it properly. And what they did is they took down the first and the second tier of the mob. The hardest part, though, was not taking down the first and second tier. What happened is, so in essence, let's liken that to the deep state. Yeah, the deep state was crushed. It was fallen. But what happened is you have all these ancillary people that are now vying for position and trying to do things. So it's like the cockroaches are spreading and it gets really, really, really messy. And in essence, that's what is going on right now. So what we're looking at the messiness. So is child trafficking completely stopped? Absolutely not. I deal with these cases daily. I deal with CPS cases daily. So what happens is the big apparatus is taken down, and now you have all these people that don't even have any direction still trying to do. So the reason why you see all this evil and craziness going on, I don't believe they're controlled by a higher so-called deep state anymore. they're like cockroaches spreading, and they're vying for position and trying to get what they can get, which is the hardest thing. The easy part, what Giuliani did, was taking down the first 2 tiers. The hardest part was finding the 3rd, 4th, and 5th tiers that were scrambling, trying to do whatever they possibly could. So that's why you still have CPS cases. That's why you still have children getting raped. That's why you still have a lot of challenges going out there. The main apparatus was unlikely, I think, removed, by the way, which includes the SES, which nobody talks about, the Senior Executive Service, which helped fund a lot of this through CIA and some other apparatuses. So, yeah, I do believe what Derek was saying, that that's the first tier. Went after it immediately. But what we're looking at is we're looking at all these psychos that have no direction whatsoever are a lot harder to stamp out because you don't even know the names of a lot of these. So yeah, is there still trafficking going on? Yes. Do I think it's less? A lot less. Is there still CPS cases going on that are stealing kids? 100%. The challenge is now they have to go one at a time. Where the deep state, you can dismantle the deep state and say the 13 families, if you want to get in the whole Illuminati connection, right? You can dismantle that at the beginning, which was the military operation. Now they're almost kind of in a cleanup phase, which if anybody understands the way military operations work, I know Derek and other people here do, the cleanup phase sometimes is the hardest, most messiest portion of the battle. And that's what I think we're seeing. And I've said for a long time, we are inside of a modern day boot camp right now. We are in the boot camp because we have to be broken down to be reframed. So we have to take accountability. The Patriots can't just stand on a pedestal and say, I know it all. We are all being broken down through the psychological operations right now, just like a boot camp does. What the goal is so you can rebuild something a lot better and together. Yeah. And I think the people are in the midst of a boot camp right now and they don't even know it, but ultimately it will be a positive thing.
You know, I'd like to piggyback on something else too. It would seem obvious if you think about it and you use your discernment. If the big structure were still in place, it wouldn't all be coming out.
We'd be dead.
They had it. Well, yes. But what I'm saying is we didn't know about it for how long as average people. So the fact that all this is coming out shows you that the barn door's been blasted open. So now, like you said, the hardest part is that cleanup where you still have these almost like chickens without head. They're running around and they don't know.
Well, even with heads, have you ever chased a chicken before? I have. Yeah, even from California, I've chased chickens. I've raised chickens. It ain't easy when they're out. Let me or rabbits are even harder, right? And that's the challenge right now. Yeah, you crush the big apparatus running things, but now it's about you got to get this one and get that one and get that one. And sometimes they even do more damage. I mean, they're very clear about their satanic agenda right now, right? Sometimes they do even more damage alone than they would be together because they have no control mechanism and it's not running as an organized operation.
Yeah. I mean, I believe what we've been witnessing is sting operation after sting operation after sting operation and surveillance to catch all this low-hanging fruit as they, scuttle around. And because when they've got no leadership, they're all making mistakes and all these sorts of things. So, yeah, I mean, we've heard that 13 bloodline families were taken down a long time ago, but that's just speculation, isn't it? I did just want to ask, because Stephen the Maestro put a couple of questions in here, and this is going back to full control, partial control. When we talk about the media as well, many of us have said that it has to be the hypnotist that breaks the hypnosis, right? So it doesn't matter what we say to all these normies. When they get it from their trusted BBC or CNN and stuff and they start turning around, that potentially is going to be their awakening moment. But Stephen put a couple of questions in the chat. If the military have full control over the media, why aren't we seeing it? The media is the biggest problem, obviously. And he did put a question. We'll go around. This will come back to Derek, but everyone can answer these. Question for Derek. State of emergency must officially be officially declared in order to take legal action. The current maritime admiralty laws, with all their corruption, will not provide any solution. So, do you want to comment, Mark, first?
Say that again.
I'll just see if we'll come round to you, Derek, because I want to see, media with Mark being in the swamp for 47 years.
Well, look, I mean, the media is, and I've said this a billion times, it's the strongest arm of the cabal. Okay, that's the brainwashing arm, that's the control arm. You get your information out to millions of people in one shot. I think that the manner in which they're doing things, obviously you can see some changes, but you can't publicly go out there and put out all of a sudden a complete and total 180 from what the public is used to seeing, because that would be plainly obvious, and they'll go, what's going on? They're taking control of the media. It's you're right back to the coup thing again. So that's not going to happen. But the wash, rinse, repeat that brainwashed everybody over the past bunch of decades to where we are now is what's going to get everybody back to normal and back on a normal thinking path, because you got to do the same thing to unbrainwash somebody as wash, rinse, repeat. But by the same token, you're seeing more and more unusual, by mainstream media standards, unusual patterns in the information that they're releasing. So it's obvious that the information is starting to get out there. It's still kind of a drip, drip, drip. It's not the same drip, drip, drip that we were going through a number of years ago, but it's starting to get out. And because of the fact, like I said, that you can't just go a complete and total 180, it's got to be done in a manner in which the audiences are going to start to think a little bit more and start to absorb a little bit more before they can take the next step forward and really start to divulge more and more information. And even at that point, you're still going to have a certain percentage of the population that's going to turn around and say, they're taking over the media, they're doing this, that, and the other, and they're going to rebel. That green-haired girl with the glasses and the hat that's in each one of Dave's opens is, I refer to as his girlfriend. You're always going to have them. I was going to have the pink-haired or the one that's in Congress. I forget her name, with the purple hair over there. You're always going to have those who are going to be out there screaming and ranting and raving. But as you start to see the slow dissemination of truth in general out there to relay to the public, that's how you're going to start to move forward. And look, we also have to monitor our own and make sure, like I said before, you see that alternative media overall has gotten just as bad as the mainstream media, because it's an opportunity for a lot of people to go out there and who didn't have jobs before and turn that into their career. Well, that's not what we're supposed to be looking for. It's not what we're supposed to be doing. That's why, since I've retired, even before, but I took a lot of backlash for it, I'm very, very much so for journalistic integrity. Don't put out your opinion. Don't put out all this other crap. Put out the truth as you know it, and let the audience decide. Let them discern what's real and what's not. So there's my little
journalistic integrity is kind of like government efficiency, right?
Yeah, pretty much so. Pretty much so. As a matter of fact, if you tried to get most journalists now to write out in script journalistic integrity, they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So very sad.
So the question is primarily about media. What was the question again?
Well, if the military have full control over the media, why aren't we seeing it? The media is the biggest problem.
All right. Well, I'll briefly weigh in on that. I agree in principle with Mark that, I don't think any of us can definitively say whether the mainstream media is entirely under white hat control, but I tend to lean more in that direction for that very reason. The fact that we're seeing so many things beginning to be exposed that would never happen if the old guard was still intact and the power players were still where they were. And it kind of, relates back to my previous point about, questioning, and Derek addressed this a little bit, whether the deep state is still active. I think when you say that term, it's sort of it's a very large term. I believe, and I've said this for years, that the top echelons, the real power players have already been taken out. But I also can acknowledge that certainly we haven't eradicated all evil from the world. As Lewis was talking about, there's quite a bit of evil still going on right in front of our face. And what I was alluding to more in the sense of, questioning whether or not we're watching a entirely scripted movie, wholesale, like everything that we're watching is fake, versus ongoing operations. And I would I guess characterize them as being mop-up operations. That's a pretty, I've heard you, I think, Lewis, you described it very well in the sense that behind the scenes, the white hats taking down like the top echelons of the pyramid, so to speak, and then doing the mop-up operations, but the way that they're presenting it to the public is exactly the opposite.
Right.
Like we're going from the bottom all the way up to the top rung. So I think that there's still some gameplay happening as far as that goes. Just to clarify that point, do I believe that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and Joe Biden are actually still alive and running things, or Klaus Schwab or any of them? No, certainly not. But that's not to suggest we say the deep state is still active. I mean, I look at things around the world. Just even different theaters, things going on in the Middle East and so forth. It would seem very unlikely to me that that's just entirely fake, wag the dog, nothing actually real is going on there. It seems to make a lot more sense to me that there are outposts, that there are still strongholds and areas of concern that need to be dealt with. I mean, that's just my viewpoint. To think that we're simply just sitting back here enjoying our popcorn and watching a movie and no part of it, no aspect of it is real. I can't swallow that by any stretch, simply knowing the fact that evil still persists in the world. But as it pertains to the media, I mean, I'm in agreement with Mark primarily, although I can say that, it's like any other tool. It's the degree to which you wield the mainstream media as a reverse psychology weapon against the normies. We could certainly debate that. Yes, you don't want them, you don't want to jar them awake, because again, it would be counterproductive to the operation. Like you want this whole, my understanding of the movie aspect of this for the normies is to lead them down the path. So what they feel like is happening is an organic awakening, like their eyes are being open, and it has to feel as if it's coming from them, because if they feel for a moment like somebody is imposing this on me, a lot of you guys have referenced the idea of a coup, like all of a sudden their defenses would go up, and it would be the opposite of what the intended goal is, which is to make it seem like it's organic. Having said that, I think there's a case to be made that if the premise is correct, that the white hats are primarily in control of the dissemination of information, that at this stage of the game, kind of in line with what we were talking about before in terms of tangible results, tangible justice, using that tool a little bit more aggressively might not be a bad idea. Certainly, and I know that it's not a question of questioning the military and what, and I get what Derek is saying. I mean, I certainly understand, that like I respect the fact that I don't know things about the military and the laws and orders, et cetera. But I also believe that we're all part of this discussion, and it's important that all voices are being heard, right? And the fact of the matter is that there are relatively few Americans out there who have that military background, but nevertheless, they still have their viewpoints, they have their opinions, and they have their audiences, which have ultimately given them their platform because they're using their voice to express concerns that resonate with a wide array of people. So, I don't think it's personally, I don't think that it's mutually exclusive to say that, you trust the plan and you trust the president, but to also question certain aspects of the operation as we're going through it in the face of uncertainty. That's just my personal viewpoint. So I think the media, the more, and I remember talking about this very early on when I started doing shows, we all recognize, and Mark said it, they're the most powerful tool in terms of holding this matrix together for the normies. And the reality is that a lot of these people, most of them are so brainwashed that if the media started telling the truth in the way that we would define it and want it to happen, a lot of these people would just simply sit there and swallow it and absorb it and say, wow, okay, you know, like, because that's the whole problem. They take their cue, that the way that they've been programmed, they take their cues directly from the mainstream media. And I don't think I would suggest that a vast majority wouldn't have that moment like, oh, I feel like I'm being manipulated. Oh, they're taking over. I mean, I understand from the perspective of announcing to the public that there's a military operation going on, that would cause some panic. But if you had arrests happening and you had the media reporting on the real truth behind the crimes that have been committed against humanity, most of the normies out there would just start to absorb it.
Yeah.
That's my view on it. So
yeah,
I'll leave it there.
In regards to the media, I'll just be really quick on this. So people scream at me because I say, hey, there's a military operation and we, the people, are a big, huge part of the plan. Those aren't mutually exclusive. They're actually intertwined and work symbiotically together. And it's very, very important because we can't do this without the military. And I don't think the military can do this without the people. This is what the whole part of the acclimation process is. And I'm going to give a little bit of a clue to the acclimation process. I'll just use CNN as the antidote. CNN, a few years ago, were 100% anti-Trump, anti-anything conservative. And then what happened is they accidentally started playing a little clip here, oops, which was a disclosure, and another clip here, which is a disclosure. And then the next phase is what they did is they started to include conservative voices on panels, right? And then the next phase is they started to interview conservative voices, and the interviewer had no rebuke of what they were saying whatsoever. And now they're actually starting to show a story that may be in support of the Trump administration, so on and so forth. Now, if they would have jumped from zero to showing stories all of a sudden that were positive about the Trump administration, what do you think would have happened? Everybody would have figured it out and they would, oh no, they've been taken over. They would have screamed and it wouldn't have had the effect. So everything that we are seeing is a slow acclimation project. Mm-hmm. It's the reversal of the frog in the pot, which was all negative to get us here, to now bring us into a positive mindset. I believe this is, but if we really want the big trigger, people are going to get mad at me. We need a financial collapse, because that's when people will say, oh shit, this affects me now, I better pay attention.
Yeah.
100%. That would be the faster way to do it. Or like I said, bring Joe Biden out and have President Trump remove his mask. That may help.
That'd do it.
Let's let Derek. This is Derek's wheelhouse. So I'm going to listen to you, Derek, and then I have to go, folks. This was a spontaneous here, but I want to hear the final words on the subject.
That means I can't talk bad about you till you leave?
No, you can do it now. You know I don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, no, nothing bad. No, well, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier. This is where the bad guy comes in, per se, if you take it the wrong way. But it goes back to what I was saying about people believing, even patriots believing what they want to believe with what is and what isn't, right? And it goes back to trying to bridge that gap and why military is not better than you. But this is a military operation. Well, and you believe that, then you got to know your role again. Patriots, 99% of patriots are self-appointed, and that's okay because you're supposed to be in another kind of manner, but you're still a civilian, right? So there's that. And it goes back to when you got a veteran sitting here, but especially one that knows and knows what I know and has spilled what I've spilled, that wasn't just to be a plug on my own. That didn't happen on my own. I didn't do this. I didn't seek this out. I went globally viral, got confirmed. All these people show up at my door, and all of a sudden I'm back in a different capacity. Not where I'd actually want to be, ironically. However, I don't question God. But when President Trump said to remember your oath, he meant it in a whole different spectrum because of what the slow roll is supposed to be. Now, I've made notes again. That way I stay on point. But, you know, when you talk about opinions out there, well, it goes back to that old saying, opinions are like buttholes. Everybody's got one, and they typically stink sometimes. So, you know, an operation negates opinions from the standpoint of not the chatter between you, but what is and what isn't. That's where the opinions get negated. It's not that you can't have an opinion, you can't talk amongst yourselves, you're supposed to, but when you're trying to talk about what is taking place, then there's a few people who absolutely know and can talk about it and break it down to where the general population can understand that. Like if I was able to go to every household in America or small groups and give them exactly, without even buying a book, it's not even about buying a book, it's not even about that. The whole book came about to give people a chronological order, and where if I don't know you and someone hears about me, hey, this guy's got the chronological book, it's for that reason. But if it was me personally, just like my documents, they're still free to the public. They're time stamped and time dated, but it gets people enough to sink their teeth into. They can already sink their teeth into it. Do they want to sink their teeth into it is the other biggest question. Well, they don't know that they want to because they don't know yet, which is the painful part for the patriots out there that are awake. But getting back to media, pulling in the media here, now let me get back to my notes. Why do we call it a movie? Right? Why is it called a movie? Because it's playing out like a movie. President Trump says we got to give the people what they want. Well, people love drama, so they have to do more like big Broadway, like, but also making all these kind of things like Lewis was talking about earlier, is where it's like, well, you know, when you go out here and make this statement, what gets people's attention? But it's a slow attention, but it's a big attention. So that's why President Trump will say the most bizarre things, because he can under military law. It's a whole different setup, right? But to the average public, they're like, why did he say that? What the heck? They're already thinking, though. They already got them engaged. See, so that's just marketing 101 right there. The other thing is President Trump said in 2020, which people try to attach a lot of his quotes to the time period, this don't have to do with COVID. He said the cure cannot be bigger than the problem. Well, that could be applied to anything in this operation. The cure cannot be bigger than the problem, which means we don't need 47 new laws when we already have a law. We need people to know the law, right? We need people to want to know the law. So then you get over to the media. If you believe that President Trump's in control, then you got to believe he's in control of the media. All right. You can't. This is one of those things. You can't believe in President Trump and then keep saying, oh, the deep state and the black hats and they're doing this and they're doing that. You can't believe that. It's not possible. You either believe we have it all, we caught them all. He said that 6 years ago now. And now he's showing everything. It's all coming out slow roll. So you either believe in President Trump and it's a slow roll, or you just stay in the normie world, because that's the normie's way of thinking, because they don't know what to think right now. They don't know that they don't know. So 47 United States Code Section 606. Now, I don't make money on this book, but I'm going to show people this book again. I don't know how many can see it, but I get it right up near the screen. This is what the military this is what military intelligence uses. All right. This is what everybody knows in the military, or you're supposed to know. All right. Military, government, and martial law. All right. To the point earlier, someone made a point about the state of emergency. You know how many state of emergencies are already declared right now? I mean, every single economics, international economics act, every one of them are invoked right now. Every single one of them. And guess what? They were invoked before President Trump ever walked into D.C. 17 times that he says. They were already invoked. So see, what President Trump and the military are doing is going, hey, these idiots, they left everything open, right? There were 25 to this day. There's 25 national emergencies from 2016 back to 1979 that President Trump didn't have a single thing to do with. Iran, Venezuela, Congo, there's a few of them, right, that you've seen. Yemen, every action we've taken that people call a war, they're all diplomacy by the deep state, right, that President Trump's having to clean up, plus declared his own. So you got to go back to this. Title 10, Chapter 47, what we call military law, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It was established in 1950. Title 10, Chapter 47 was 1950. All right. Then you go to a national emergency. When Congress overrode President Nixon with a veto, he tried to veto this, and they overrode him and did a 2/3 count, 2/3 vote, and overrode him and passed the quote unquote War Powers Act. It by law is actually unconstitutional because you don't need it. The same thing as we didn't really need Title 10, Chapter 47. We didn't need it because we already had military laws. All right. Presidential emergency action documents. There's 4 ways, only 4, that military pairs with federal: executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties. Well, executive orders are already a presidential power. All right. National emergencies are already presidential power. Well, all of those require the executive branch. For example, President Trump, in his first 100 days in office, which would have been 2025, this portion, he said, I've signed a record number, over 350 executive orders. If you go back and look at the Federal Register and also the WhiteHouse.gov, where they're logging all those now that they've never done before, there's only 100 to that day. Where were the other 250? Where are they? They got to be somewhere. Presidential emergency action documents. Now, they're draft classified. You can't Google those. You can't find those. You can't look them up. What are they? Where are they? Who are they? That's where you got to trust the president. So when you talk about a declaration, this book right here will tell you this, that the president can most certainly declare war without Congress. This has been accepted by Congress for 250 years because military came first in this nation. So this right here is the holy grail, meaning that this is what President Trump's going to be able to say. Well, guess what? All the past Congresses have supported this, meaning the Constitution has supported this. So 47 U.S. Code, Section 606, is a war powers that the president can control the media. He can control all the broadcasting, what goes out, what's being said, how they're using it. So in order to get a flippage, I call it a flippage, but in order to flip that over to the public, the slow roll, but also get the public engaged, is to exonerate President Trump using the media, the voices that they think have been traditionally against him. They start rolling that out. But he's using their own national emergencies against them, the deep state. That is the deep state right there, where you say, you use it in that context. Even though they're gone, you're saying, hey, President Trump's using all their verbiage, all their laws, all their unconstitutional laws against them, all right? And he's using the media to do so. And that's a power of a national emergency. So in 1973, Congress made it to where a president had to declare a national emergency to use the military. Well, there you go. There's the law he needs. Even though I think it's unconstitutional, he says it's unconstitutional, you still use it because it's legislated, unconstitutionally legislated. So the media is genius in another way. They're a part of this. I mean, why wouldn't you use the media? You have to use the media. So what everybody's seeing right now, if you call yourself a patriot, great, baby, get your popcorn and smile and see that, okay, you're not part of this. If you already know that, you're not part of this. But the people out there, they don't know a single term from a single sentence of a single paragraph of a single law. So they have to see it this way, and it's a slow roll. So Comey, if we were still in the days of old, Comey has not posted on his X account since June last year. Why? How come he can't? All right. He was posting 8647 pretty heavily, and then all of a sudden, boop, disappears. Right? If Comey was free and roaming, he'd be on there. Obama, ladies, here's the ladies again. If your man, right, didn't step up for you when some burly guy in his little whitey tighties, even though he's muscled and he can whoop your butt, but he gets on world TV and says, Michelle Obama has a set of balls, by the way. When your man don't come to your defense, even if he got his butt kicked in a real fight, that's one fight, man. Men out there, you just go ahead and lose. It don't matter how big the guy is. If this dude says your wife has a set of kahunas, you go ahead and get knocked out for that. You stand up for that. Man, don't you talk about my wife like that. Where's Obama? If we were in the days of old, think how much they dominated the airwaves with all their bull crap and all their drama and their own petty drama against each other. You don't see that anymore. When you really home in on the laws and the orders of the operation, and then you take what Mark's old colleagues used to do, right? Because it wasn't Mark. but it was his old colleagues that do it. When you take what they're doing right now, every single article applies to something going on strategically. It's not something that's flagrant and out of the blue and, oh, someone said something about this. Even something as crazy as the 747 or the new Air Force One, quote unquote, the bridge. Something as petty as that to the general public. Oh, an aircraft, that's a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal, right? Because that particular aircraft is the aircraft of all aircrafts, right? So there's little things that can show you what they're doing. And then some of it is a distraction to get people to look over here. We're doing something over here. All right. So the media is the absolute last player that you need to absolutely flip the whole script. And in a movie, do you arrest people at the beginning of the movie, the middle, or the end, right? In President Trump, they've scripted this to where that's why he uses Pavarotti, whoa, right? Well, you don't do whoa at the beginning of the movie, right? Unless you just use a partial clip, something like Lewis, he's a producer. He might use a partial clip to give you like a oh, what's coming, and then blah, 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 boring, or facts, not boring facts, but just saying like what people call boring, the setup. And then you get to that part where everybody's like, oh, here he is. There's Patrick Swayze. He's about to do the dirty dance, right? There he is. He's about to do the arch, right? And then the movie does what? Now I had the time of my life. That's a perfect song because it builds up, right? And then, whew, what's President Trump going to do? He's going to do that, right? So a lot of people got to see it as what they're doing it. But again, everybody can know right now. So when everybody says what they say, you go, well, everybody can know. The laws are all public. It's all public knowledge. And then also, again, how come you don't know? How come I know and you don't know? So it always goes back to how come I don't know and you don't know, or how come I know and you don't know? It's an equation, right? So it's just, I don't know. Without being offensive, it's one of those things that goes back to 47 U.S. Code, Section 606. President Trump said, I can use the War Powers Act, and I can use the Aliens Act, and I can use this, and I can use that. And Congress, it don't matter what they say, they're under operation. What did the Supreme Court say about the 1798 Aliens Act? They ruled he can use that. That's a wartime power only. But guess what they didn't say? They didn't say the Aliens Enemies Act, which is what it is now. They said the Aliens Act. That's the old act. Mark, remember, it's got the Seditions Act tied to it, right? Now, if you go to Google, they'll tell you that, oh, they abolished that in 1800. They didn't abolish it. They didn't abolish it. They just said we don't need it anymore. So why did the media use 1798 Aliens Act, not the verbiage 17 Aliens Enemies Act? It's a huge difference. So see, what President Trump's doing, Democrat presidents already done it. Teddy Roosevelt, he arrested, I don't know how many it was. So you gotta be able to look at the war powers and always go back to like this right here. Let me put it up again one more time. I don't make money on this, by the way. This ain't my book, but this is a book that everybody can sink your teeth into, William Berkheimer. All right. And when you read this book, you're going to be accelerated in knowledge on what the president can do. And getting to the person who mentioned the State of Declaration, a proclamation. Everybody, when you read martial law portion, the martial law, the president don't have to tell you when he declares martial law. He absolutely does not. He has to do it by proclamation. If you go back to 2019, February 2019, President Trump, Proclamation 9844. All right. That's when he invoked Title 10 of the National Guard to the borders. All right, but that's still a proclamation. He didn't do it by executive order. He did it by proclamation. All right, that is a proclamation. And what followed after February 2019? All these national emergencies by President Trump that specifically to do with the military. So the proclamation is already there. We're already in martial law, but you don't have to know that. It's kind of like, again, if you don't like wolves, there's a wolf on your door. I know how to get the wolf off your door without alerting you. Immediately, I go over there and get that wolf, and then I know you, Mark. You're terrified of wolves, Mark. I know you hate them, but guess what? A month ago, there was a wolf at your door. Well, Mark's not going to be as alarmed if I said, last night there was a wolf on your door, All right. You had just walked out to get your newspaper, Mark, if they existed anymore. And I got that wolf, though, right after you did that. Mark would be like, I'm not going out at night anymore to get my newspaper, right? He still may not, but he's more prone to knowing that I'm over there watching and going, I'm watching for those wolves, Mark. Don't you worry. You keep getting your newspaper, Mark. I'm watching the wolves. That's what the military is doing right now. We got all you covered. Nothing's going to happen to you. Now, like Lewis said, there are some low-level hanging fruit because there are evil people in the world, just people. It don't mean they're to do with the operation. They're just stupid and evil people who want to commit crimes, who are all wacko right here. There are that. And that's where you, the people, we the people, have to home in even more on that. So what do you look for and how do you recognize it? And Lewis is great at that because he's got all the documentaries on what to look for and trafficking, how they operate and all these other things. And he talks about that a lot. He's been talking about it for a long time. So it's a matter of people homing in on the people who know what they're talking about and homing in on that, but applying that to where when you're walking around, if you do see something, don't be Barney Five completely, but there's a bridge there, like where you're not Barney, but you're still aware and you're like, that don't look right. That looks suspicious. That looks like what Derek says. That looks like what Lewis says. That looks like what Mark says, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So there's a bridge there. It's always a bridge.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to roll, guys. I got to roll. I wanted to make let me make one correction to the record really quick. Obama was the wife in the relationship. Just so you know.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Lewis, I know you've got to run, Lewis. Can you just give a quick word about the children just to finish? Because ultimately, this is why we're all here and we're seeing these, all these operations being taken down and stuff. And you've done some great work.
It is about the children. It has always been about the children. And I've railed against certain podcasters that have built their podcast on child trafficking and then abandoned it years ago because they already built a following, right? And I call them out. So we are not even fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for the future of the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, people that won't even be related to us, and we're fighting for people that hate us right now. That's what this fight is about. I was hoping that exposing the child trafficking would motivate a lot more people, but what it really did is it got people in denial. That's where I failed. It actually pushed them into more denial, where they put their walls up and their covers up. So this is why this slow disclosure, which I learned several years ago, is so important, that we give them just a little piece at a time, and it builds and it builds and it builds. That doesn't count the people in the know, obviously, but we're not fighting for us, guys. Let's be real about this. We're fighting for the people that don't have a clue. So I would absolutely recommend, which I talk to people all the time, and I'll leave it with this. Let's not truth barf on people that have no clue what's going on, right? I think you speak to them where they're at. And unless you're my wife, she's a hairdresser, she can lock their ass down and she could just let them know everything, and they're going to come back for more and like it. But unfortunately, if I'm talking to somebody, in line at the grocery store, I will acclimate myself to the big stuff, just because I have to feel out where they are. But it's always about the children, and this is why I say that I do believe the good guys are in control of the chessboard. So they have the moves and they control the chessboard. But even in a chess, you can still take out pawns and take out other things on your way to losing, right? So that's why it's up to us, we the people, to really educate. And even let's assume that everything's fixed, but we still need to educate people on how it is not, so they can see it for themselves. And that's why it's so important to show that there's election fraud, and it's important to show that in the United States we have 4,500 more poisons in our food than you do in Europe. These are very important things to show. By the way, which would actually support the military and what they're doing when we start showing people this, because they're either going to be looked at as more of the heroes the more disclosure that we can do personally. And I believe we're going to get to a point. People say, how's the wake up going to be? I don't think it's going to be coming as much from President Trump and Elon. I think it's going to be coming like people here, and they're going to be retweeted by President Trump, Elon, and other people. And therefore, it's going to be more palatable for we the people, because there's not a specific agenda behind it. So I think we're in for fun times. We're in for trying times. But this is part of what we're dealing with. And I'm thankful and blessed that I can even be helpful, hopefully, and part of this in the least bit. And I'm going to end it with this. I saw the future a long time ago, and it is glorious. I just hope I'm here to see it in the flesh.
And that's the great line, Lewis, as well. We are fighting for the people who hate us, not just the children, for the people that despise us at the moment. And I just don't realise yet. They will.
Appreciate all of you folks. Thanks for giving me the time.
Lewis.
This was spontaneous, or I would have stayed here longer.
Yeah. You take care.
Ciao.
Take care.
See you later. Patriot, Derek, do you want to, talk about what Lewis is talking about? Children, then, I'd like to have Mark to have the last word today. Obviously.
Sure. I'll jump in and talk about that. And first of all, I think this was a great panel. As far as I'm concerned, when you get differing viewpoints on certain issues and there's a little bit of back and forth, whether you want to call it debate, whatever you want to call it, I honestly believe that that's healthy, because it helps the audience. I mean, ultimately, why are we here? Why are we doing this? First and foremost is for the children. But indeed, we've all been put in this position so that we could help people navigate through this process. And I think that it's actually a good thing when you have sometimes a little bit of disagreement about certain aspects of the operation, how it's playing out, because it allows people to exercise their own discernment, to dig a little bit deeper. But having said that, in listening to everybody today, I primarily believe that in principle, we're on the same page, that the White Hats are in control, that we're still in many ways engaged in a mop-up operation. And that, that the media, the information that's being dispensed to us is being guided and directed by the White Hats. So in terms of all of the major points, I would say that primarily I'm in agreement with what was said on this panel today. As far as the children are concerned, that's one of the reasons that I have so much love and respect for Mark, because he's always had that as the primary focal point of his work. And indeed, many, many times, many episodes, I've delved into it. The problem I have a lot of the time is that I have a difficult time holding it together. When I really get into these discussions, you can go back and listen to some of the ones that I've done in the past. And very often I find myself just like kind of breaking down in tears. I mean, and I know as a father having two young kids, it's even more amplified, that feeling of wanting to, that paternal instinct to protect children. Everybody has it, but it really comes to the fore when you have your own children, particularly young ones. And, I think, Mark, the last conversation you and I had, we were talking about this, is that like any time a child gets trafficked, anytime a child gets raped, etc., that it could be your child that's next. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm coming from in terms of being realistic about the fact that indeed there's still a lot of evil in this world. I believe that the power players have been taken out behind the scenes, and in many ways they're actually taking their cues, no pun intended, from the White Hats, having taken certain players off the chessboard and removed them and replaced them rather with White Hat operators who are actually giving these people orders and directing them in the exact direction that the White Hats want them to go. But it's so important to never lose sight of what it is that we're all fighting for. And at the core of all this, I've always said it's a spiritual war. And our most basic instinct as human beings is to protect innocence. And that's ultimately the currency that the deep state cabal trafficked in, was innocence, was, children, adrenochrome, etc. These things, when I learned them very early on, they moved me to such an extent that was actually the one thing that enabled me to push beyond the fear of becoming a public voice and a public figure, being part of this movement, was having to grapple with those evils. And indeed, that I still believe, as Q indicated, that's going to be the uniting factor across all party lines. It's going to be crimes against children that unites us. However, there may be certain aspects that need to be disclosed first. In a similar way, we were talking about the structure of the movie. If you're scripting this all out and you're going to gradually give the public the truth, or at least most of the truth, you're probably going to save the most horrific aspects of it for towards the end, when people are actually capable of being able to get their brains around this information. When you go back to the beginning of the year, January, February, when they released the Epstein files, or, there's still quite a bit of redactions in there, but they put out some pretty significant and horrific details that the public was, it was no longer a conspiracy theory. It was no longer a fringe topic. It was put out there. It was all over the place. Even the mainstream media, to a certain extent, couldn't ignore it. Mm-hmm. But part of the problem, again, I go back to, is that the normie mindset is what defines the normie mindset is they're so deeply brainwashed, and their consciousness is propping up and adhering to this matrix, that until they get the direction from what they see as the arbiters of truth and reality, which is the mainstream media, and of course all the actors who are playing the deep state politicians, until they're told to care about something. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. Mark mentioned a little while ago, it was probably towards the beginning of the show, like, what's it going to take for people to be like, that scene in the movie, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. I'd like to think that folks would get there on their own, and perhaps they will eventually. But the more cynical part of me still believes that they're not going to actually turn that corner until they get their cues from the mainstream media and the people that they see as trustworthy, and who knows, it could be wrong. I could be wrong about that, but either way, I do believe we're headed in that right direction. So once again, I just want to thank you guys for inviting me on the panel. Mark, again, happy birthday. And I really appreciate being part of this discussion.
Thank you, Patriot. Derek, final thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Well, happy birthday, Mark, first and foremost. And you don't look a day over 70, but I'm just kidding.
You screwed up. I am already way over.
No, I was trying to make a real good bad joke, see? But maybe I should aim higher. Well, you don't look a day over 90.
There you go.
All right, there you go. There we go. Well, I think the other thing, though, is like sometimes when I'm perceived the wrong way, and I get that, but I'm okay with that because, there's a photo that I put up of a big Irish white ass that's like next to a window in the helicopter. I speak on behalf of a lot of veterans and armed forces. Let's just go with that. And so we are always perceived as these hard asses, know-it-alls, cocky, conceited, and all this other stuff. The military gets that a lot, and especially with the civilian world. There's a lot of liberals, Democrats, they hate the military. Deep down, they hate it, even though it's the very thing that gives them their voice. So it's also teaching the patriot world out there that are civilians, like, how do veterans talk? How do we think? And then also knowing that this is a real operation. But the operation is defined by laws and orders. It can't operate. That's another thing this book talks about. It talks about the Declaration of Independence. But it says without laws and orders, you have chaos. So what do you want? You get a choice. Do you want chaos? Well, that's the case. We could all be Barney Fife. We could take the law in our hands. We could walk around with a 38 or a 45. And if I don't like what Stu has to say about me, then it depends on how I'm feeling that day. Stu may just walk up on the wrong day. We wouldn't want that. You couldn't have that. That's why our founders had a Revolutionary War. But if you go read John Adams' quote, the Revolutionary War was a product of what the people had already thought. The war didn't create the thought afterward. The thought was already there. The ideology was already there. They'd already fought it out in another manner. The war was a repercussion of that, right? The ones who were angry, mad, and all that. That's why when you look in graveyards, 98% of graveyards, they're just regular people, right? Civil War, same thing. All in the South. I can go to graveyards all in the South. You'll see one or two Confederate graves. The rest, all the same time period, didn't fight, didn't get in war. But the average perception now, if you're talking to someone up north, especially someone who's liberal, You talk about the Civil War, they think everybody in the South fought the Civil War. It's like, it's just not the case. So I speak on behalf of one, the soldiers who have already taken that fall or have gone on. My dad already passed now. He was in the very first Special Operations Command of the Air Force that JFK established. Secret clearance, top secret clearance. There's stuff he and I could talk about because I also had the same clearance level. All right, there's things that we could talk about. Some things he wouldn't talk about because he felt that was his duty and honor to keep it what he knew, and that's okay. That's what you're supposed to do. So see, there's a lot of aspects of the military people forget about. But if you acknowledge President Trump is the greatest of all time, if you acknowledge as a military operation, then you got to acknowledge everything as this is an operation, not, oh, what's left for the people in the sense of to make up what they want to make up out of it. That's just not what happens. And that's why a lot of us butt heads everywhere else out there, especially when I've been at some events where there's some absolute people who just want to take me out in the parking lot, right? That's why I have security detail and everything around me all times, because that's what was told to me to have by the people that I work with, right? Have security detail, just be safe, don't be sorry, because we need everybody in this operation knowing what's going on to bridge that gap. But people get mad because I'm like, well, when you use a phrasing and a terminology military operation, then you need to know what that consists of. And civilians need to know their role, know their place. That don't mean not to question, that don't mean not to have conversations, but when a veteran steps in a room, Lieutenant Colonel Bosey, Major Jim O'Connor, Lieutenant Colonel Lennox, whomever, it don't just have to be me. Know your role in that place, right? Because when you have a bunch of civilians talking about military operations of which you've never been a part of at any capacity, then if you're a person of influence that someone likes and you're up there negating what the veteran's sitting there saying is absolute fact by law, but they don't know that yet, operation, they don't know that yet, order, they don't know that yet, then you still misleading those people. And that's all that what we're trying to say is that we're over here trying to bridge the gap with just the civilians, right? There's a lot of bridges out there that has to be filled in. It's like, so when a veteran steps in the room and you got people up there like in New York, and I'm not knocking it, that's great. The venue was awesome. Everything was perfect, but you get one person in there going, come on, buddy, let's get up there. Let's tell them what's up. Dude, you're not part of this operation. You're part of the civilian world. That's fine. But you're not part of the military operation, right? So there's that gap, and that's where that respect has to come in. When they do start showing President Trump as this hero to the libtards, when they do start showing your General Flynn's and different people out there, the other side that opposes them right now, they're supposed to respect them in the right kind of manner, not bow down to them. I'm not saying that, but you got to have that respect factor of what they went through that you didn't go through, that they're a part of. Right. So there's always those respect factors, not bow down and worship, but a respect factor, getting that merit base back into it. Like if Mark wanted to be, I don't think he does, but let's say Mark wanted to be back in the mainstream media. Here he is. He worked up. I know I'm saying the clean out portion. Right. But let's say that they said, Mark, you were in this for 40 something years and then you're this and you're that and you're this and you're that. Like, you may want that. You may want to walk back in that. But let's say that I don't know what all you won accolades wise, but let's say that you did get back in there. Then all these younger people should look up to you from that standpoint. You're going, hey, this guy's paid his dues. He's earned his right, but he was also honest, intelligent, with integrity, and he did it right from the start, right? And what we have in society, I've seen a lot of elders don't get the respect they're due, right, whatsoever, So there's a lot of that has to be bridged before we could ever get into the arena of who's going to be the new who and who's going to deliver. So that's part of the major part that's happening right now is that mainstream media was so controlled by the powers that be back here. See, no one ever talks about, and Mark knows, you've known them and you've met them yourself, but no one ever talks about the people who owns these networks and who is back here. They're all interwebbed together. It's like Mark and I have talked about the music industry. They're all chained together back here. They're all tied. These networks are tied together. And that's how they've controlled the people. Even music, something as simple as music. People think, oh, I love music. Oh, I love it. And this, They don't realize who's back here controlling it. They don't realize, hey, it's a managed buffet. It's managed democracy. It's an illusion of choice. Here's your choices. These are the artists you get to listen to, but no one ever thinks, now, how did these artists get selected? Who are they? Where are they? And who selected them? It's that network back here that no one talks about. So it's not necessarily the journalists. The journalists, a lot of them are just being told what to do, and then they're hateful just because they're hateful, some of them. But it's really back here, they're given the free reins to do that. So that was the major market that had to be taken down, and they have absolutely been controlled the right way through the operation. The reason why I know that is because I have a badge through that organization right now, a current badge to that organization. So I already know that. And, you know, I've been slapped on the wrist the whole time. Because I've put out certain things, and they're like, whoa, bring it back, reel it back in. We have a guy that I won't say his name, but we have a guy that's high-level British intelligence, and he was on a podcast with us like 2 years ago, and his people were like, whoa, bro, step back, take it back. And so he had to disappear. He had to stop coming on the shows with us because we're current in operations, especially with Britain going through a lot of stuff that they're going through. So at that time period, which has been 2 or 3 years ago, he had to step back in another way because there's some places that haven't caught up to speed. America is, but over there. So, you know, he still shows his face sometimes, but he'll come in as a alias, right? So it's little things like that that people just don't ever think about. But as far as the greater operation, it's already taken care of. And then people getting their orders, people are already getting their orders. It's just a slow roll of getting their orders. And it's a slow roll of teaching them what that order looks like. But that's what a law and an order is. And so until the general mass public does see their arrest, like you say, they're not going to believe certain things. But that also goes back to, I'm always going to do it. I don't make money on it. This whole book, all of military law is about prevention, which Mark and I have talked about this a lot. If you're a good person on the front, everything else takes care of itself, right? Because your intent, your motives from the beginning are, Stu, I care for you. I don't care if you believe in blah, 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 blah. I'll fight for you. You know, Elisa, if you believe in this, I don't care. I'll fight for you, right? So on the front, always knowing what's right on the front and always doing what's right on the front. And that's what the military was supposed to look like. It ain't always looked like that. And that's why President Trump brags about rebuilding the military. He's absolutely rebuilt the military. They got rid of all the woke ROTC programs that was putting in all these officers. That's why people need to know the military, because you have the officer side and enlisted side. The officers are the one who take the orders and give the orders. The enlisted are kind of like the people. Like if the enlisted have no idea what's going on, then they're going to take an order that may have been an unlawful order, but they're going to take it and they're going to go operate that. And then they'll catch themselves in a situation like a Navy SEAL did a couple of years ago when he had to kill his way out of a country. Now, they did exonerate him and let him off because it's the new administration. But if that wouldn't have been an old administration, they'd have made an example out of him, right? And they would have absolutely thrown him in Leavenworth and gave him no telling what. So military also has to know that too. So no one's exempt from knowing it. But it's just a matter of making education cool. And we have it to where, Mark, you remember the guys with the old Fu Manchus and all that? Those were the historians that no one listened to that I listened to. Those are what I listened to as a kid. Now, they seemed old fogey and old and boring, but now we got to be the cool people saying, well, education is cool, laws are cool, orders are cool, but we got to have them. If we didn't have them, there'd be chaos. Right. So anyway, I'm trying to make a point short and quick. It's hard to do that with military. Right. Derek, but people are getting their orders.
Derek, can you just tell people what that book is again? The people asking in the chat.
So is it showing on the screen?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Let everybody screenshot it. But now look, you don't have to buy the book. If you just want a tangible book, but if you go to Google and just type in that, they got PDFs in this. There's a certain .org site, and it's a guy's name, and I can't think of his name right now, but it's his name /.org /something, and it's the full PDF version if you don't want to buy the book. I always have books because of my library, but if you don't want to buy the book, they got a full PDF version, and you can Control F Control F and type in military government. Control F, type in occupation or whatever you want to do. That's how you search the words.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Derek. And Lisa, you want to say final few words? Because, well, I just want to say it's a brilliant panel today. Lots of great information and awesome chat as always. And thank you for coming on. Much love to the maestro, obviously, out there. And we'll meet up again soon. Elisa, and then I'm going to leave the last words to Mark today.
Yeah, no, this was great. I want to thank you guys, and a thank you to Lewis, who had to go. It was just, I think it was a very honest, and it was, I think there was just a lot of intellectual sharing on this that's very helpful. And I think if we had to sum everything up from a civilian standpoint, we really don't know what's going on, but I think we all have great faith that the outcome is going to be wonderful. And we just kind of have to hold the line and stay strong. And it's not just about waiting. That's kind of the takeaway I always have. You can't just sit and wait for anything. You can't wait for someone to call you. You can't wait for things to work. You just have to start doing and getting involved in wherever your heart is leading you. Obviously, we're all very committed to helping the situation with the children, but there's lots of ways you can get involved on a local level. In the way that fits your time, your talents, your passions. And I think everything will happen in the time it's meant to happen, but we are meant to do our part. And that might even just come to giving support to people who are confused. So thank you everyone for being here today. A big happy birthday to you, Mark.
Hold on, I got a quick question. You just said we can't wait. So Mark has a bunch of guitars. So does that mean I don't have to wait for him to give me ones? Can I come over there and just take one?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Perfect. Mark?
You know, first of all, thank you, everybody. This was a lot of fun. It was great and some great information. Everybody had a lot of input here, a lot of very, very important input. But Derek just brought up something that is something I've spoken about for a long time and really rings true to all of this. There is a reason that I created this, okay? And the reason that I did it is because it's not an art. It is a long lost and very sadly lost aspect of our societies. And I say societies because I can't say it often enough. This is a global thing that's going on. The respect that people have been groomed, for lack of a better way of putting it, groomed into negating to each other, to your elders. That's nothing in particular in regard to me, but you know, to your elders, to look at what we've seen from quote unquote entertainers, from the population in general, in regard to the president of the past 3 terms. Okay. There are a whole bunch of patriots out there who couldn't stand that jug-eared fool that was in office from 2008 or 2004 to 2012. Was it? I forget. Anyway, whenever that jackass was in office.
2008 to 2016.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
So, you know, you're dealing with a situation like that, but there was always respect for the office. That has been lost. And that agenda that's been put out there by the mainstream media, by the people who have brought us such wonderful things as Antifa and Black Lives Matter and things like that. When I talk about the fact that we have to unify and we have to get together and work together as one people, one human race, it doesn't matter if you're black or white, if you're Jewish or Christian, or if you're male or female, if you're gay or straight, it doesn't mean squat. What does mean squat is that word behind me. Because if you don't have the same respect towards other people that you expect toward you, They're never going to get it. And we're never going to advance as a civilization. So Derek bringing up respect is very, very important. The reason I started this show is very, very important. We all need, I've said before, you know, you don't have to love thy neighbor, but for God's sake, you got to get along with them. And you have to have that modicum of respect for everybody that you deal with. And you have to have that modicum of respect for your leadership, even if you don't feel they're doing a good job, even if you don't feel they're representing you. Okay, and I'm talking about the head guys, not necessarily the people who are making the laws, because we've already seen how they've hijacked our laws, our rules, and regulations. But again, we've allowed that. So if you want to have respect for yourself and have respect for others and do for others to make things better. And maybe, just maybe, if we do that, not only will this war end, but you'll actually get to be as old as me and not be miserable. So
can I say one more thing? Just
no.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the panel, but for your sake and everybody here, talking about respect, this book right here is perfect. I didn't know we were going to lead to this, and you didn't either. This is all spontaneous. We didn't plan this, folks. But to show you respect and what we're talking about, my dad always taught me the same thing. Any kind of room I was in, elder, you respect that elder no matter what, because they've lived more life than you, right? That's why I don't sit under preachers who are my age. I want preachers who have lived some life, right? I want some gray hair. I want some white hair, because they're going to tell me some things about life maybe I don't know about, right? This right here is a perfect example. When I show you the William Burkheimer, so the guy who wrote the general premise, and I have another book, I can't reach it right now, but Military Law and Precedents, you can look that up as well. All you do is go to Google, look up military law and precedents in that order, and it'll pull up another book. That whole premise made this guy right here write this right here. General Sherman and a full bird colonel had a sit-down discussion, and they went head-to-head on certain aspects of military law. And it wasn't one of those where, oh, he flexed his muscles and, oh, boy, everybody was roaring, because when everybody walked away from there, the colonel actually won everybody over versus the general, right? And it wasn't one of those flexes where the colonel walked around and, oh, man, people think I'm bigger than the general. It wasn't that. It was a mutual respect between two masterminds out there, respectful masterminds of each other's work. But the people ultimately decided, the people in the military decided, hey, we like this approach better than this approach, right? And so it all goes back to, that was a full bird colonel went up against a general in a full head-to-head debate. And we're talking about head-to-head of layers of what even I know: irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, asymmetrical warfare, guerrilla warfare, all kinds of warfare at that time period. So that's a prime example. Some people hear the word respect so much, as Mark, we talk about too, they've heard it so much, it's so watered down, they don't even realize what it is. It's an action. It's not a word. It's not something spoken. It's an action. And so that's a great example of tying that in, of how this even, the whole premise of it came about was because two men put their egos aside and they went head to head on approaches and applications of military law. And that's what came about, is the military law and precedents, and then military government and new approaches of how we do this moving forward with the way even our battlefield has changed.
Yeah. Hey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, respect is key. Respect is really key. It's not just a word, and it's not just the name of a show. It's key in our lives. And if you look at the lack of respect that most people have for each other, lack of respect that people have for opposing ideas and thoughts, it's really hurt our society.
Yeah.
And we got to bring that respect back
It's
in.
just everywhere. You know, and we have to really take a look at that. My daughter works in a hotel, very high-end hotel. She's a kid. She's in college. She came home crying the other day because they just come into the hotel, these people, screaming at her over a policy that she has no, you know, what goes through these people's heads, you know, to be, whether it's a kid or an older person. I was in Home Depot, the man that works with the paint, we're having a conversation. He said, I can't tell you, these people come in and summon me with their hands. They don't, I don't know. It's just
Called
something that has
entitlement.
to be worked on, that everybody has to start saying the golden rule: treat people the way you want to be treated. And then everything would be a lot nicer in this world.
Absolutely. It's a sense of entitlement that too many people have. It came about, I go back to it all the time. You know, everybody can rant and rave about Reagan, but the Reagan administration created the me generation. And it's only gotten worse, worse, and worse, and worse. And it's got to be turned around. That's why, you know, we talk about how big the military's gotten. People are back, not for the sake of war, but there should be a draft. There really should be a draft, because what is one thing that the military teaches you?
Respect.
It teaches you rules and regulations, and it teaches you the respect for other people. It teaches you the respect for where we are. And that's what's got to come back into our lives.
Well, a military draft, we have been talking about it for a long time, but it should certainly sort out the woke generation. They won't know what hit them, you know. And so let's see what happens.
Trophy for them.
Yeah,
Right.
let's see what happens. Spread the love and be your authentic self in a good way.
Before we go, though, I don't know if either one of you two want to bring it up. I already brought it up last week when Patriot and I spoke. There's an event coming.
Yeah.
We don't have the full promos yet, but you guys want to bring it up, or you want me to do it?
Whatever.
If you like. I normally leave it to Elisa, but yeah.
Yeah. So between the two of us, Mark, right, we've got a great. I see your cat, Patriot. I got an orange one too. So cute. We are now locked in. We're going to have the Awakening Summit. I think a lot of you heard it was previously touted that it was going to be in Arizona. We've moved it to Florida. We have the dates locked in, October 16th to the 18th. It's in Clearwater Beach, going to be at the Wyndham. And our website is being updated. It's incredible. It's going to just be so amazing, because you're going to be able to get your tickets, buy merchandise, book your rooms, do all kinds of things through the website. About another week or so, I think we'll be in good shape. But in the meantime, mark your calendars, October 16th to the 18th. We've got an incredible roster of speakers from all aspects of this movement, if you will. Of course, our main focus of education and what you can actually do to become involved is about helping the children, whether it has to do with trafficking or it has to just do with, any kind of exploitation that's going on. Mark, you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, we've got a fantastic roster of speakers. We really do. And it's, there's going to be a lot of it that's going to be about child trafficking, but I know, look, I've gone through it, and Elisa's explained to me how many times since they've taken over the show, how debilitating it is emotionally.
Yeah.
So we're not going to have it all about that. There will be speakers on other behalves, including Derek, but facts being what they are, it's going to be a great event in a great place. I went and checked out the venue. It's a stunning, as I like to say, a drop dead stunning place. You're right on the beach. If you want to make a week's vacation out of it or an extended weekend, it's a great place to go. So it's going to be a fantastic event in a great place with some great people. And look forward.
However, you got to bring your strongest prescription sunglasses, because when I'm in a bathing suit, this all Irish will blind you and the sun.
So I got a rant on here that I want to read if you guys don't mind. It's been up.
Yeah, of course.
So this was from Sandy Toe 17, a $50 rant. Very generous. Thank you. She says, excellent Patriot panel. Thank you all for what you do. D-Class and D-Codes aid onboarding new people. Those here today are foragers and leading the next level of ascension. And I thought that was a really great rant. Loved it. And, look, somebody else made a really important, and I'll close with this really quickly, but somebody made another important comment in here, which is, I don't conflate respect with trust. They're independent. So I just want to leave people with that, like respect and trust are independent things. And a lot of important things were said today. I think they were all, everybody contributed to the panel in a meaningful way. And let's not forget, it's a military civilian alliance. Obviously, the White Hats wanted these discussions to happen. They wanted civilians, particularly, along with people who have military backgrounds, to be involved and engaged in this discussion. If they didn't, then we never would have got the Q drops. So just keep that in mind. Is all I'm saying is that it's important to hear multiple different perspectives, and you can respect somebody, but at the same time, you can have a healthy disagreement with them. And you don't necessarily, you can also respect someone and still retain your objectivity and still question things. I think that's also an important message that I just wanted to leave folks with. But I value the experience of being here today, and I just wanted to give that rant a little bit of airtime. So thank you, Stu and Elisa. Mark, again, happy birthday.
Thanks.
And Derek, thanks so much.
Yeah, brilliant. What a beautiful place to end. And where we go one, we go all. Means all of us.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for joining. It's brilliant. And I think we'll see you tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Mark.
Happy birthday.
Take care, everyone.
Everybody.
See you later. Bye.
Children are the center of our world, and we do our best to show them that we care. But evil is lurking everywhere to steal their youth, kill their soul, show them things that they should never know. We live in the craziest of times, you never know what's in another's mind. We keep them safe, protect from bad, but they just choose to make them sad and keep their evil rituals alive. Who saves the children? We do, we do. Who keeps them safe and warm and so secure? We do, we do. Who saves the children? We do, we do. And we'll fight to death to keep it safe for you. We'll fight for what's right with all of our might, and we won't leave one single child behind. They've been here since the dawn of time, and their actions take a twisted mind. But we won't stand no more. We'll track them down for sure and make sure that they are gone forevermore. Why can't you see the crimes committed on our kids by the powers that be? How long do we wait? How many must die? How many loving parents need to cry? Who saves the children?